love to cook. I love it. It is a very hands-on, very analog hobby of mine, which stands in complete contrast to my day-to-day life, which is to design and lead teams that are designing experiences for augmented and virtual reality. Now, both of these things might seem like they don't have a lot in common, but actually, they come together and they allow me to be creative, to express myself, and to be inventive. Also, in the kitchen, just like in a rigorous design debate, both places have their fair share of drama. Let me ask you guys this. Have you ever been in a situation where you've been describing to somebody a food that you love, only to find out that for them, it's been their lifelong food nemesis? And I don't mean like, they got food poisoning. I mean like there was like something traumatic that happened. You're like, oh my gosh, I love the taste of blueberry pie. And they're like, I haven't been able to trust a blueberry since one threw a drink in my face at a bar. Real devastating stuff. I was having a conversation with a colleague of mine, and I was describing to him a superpower of mine, which is to roast the perfect chicken. And I'm giving him the steps to this recipe, this very simple but very effective recipe, and he's giving me all the right feedback. So I'm like, okay, here's what I do. I take the chicken, I butterfly it, and I press it into a well-oiled pan. And he's like, I got it. Then I put a little butter on it, a little salt, little pepper, fresh rosemary, fresh thyme. I put that bad boy in the oven, 170 degrees C for 1 hour. He's like, yeah, go. And I'm like, yeah, so I take it out. It smells good. It's crispy on the outside. The chicken is juicy. I pair it with a nice glass of dry Riesling, if you know what I mean. I serve it up on the table. It looks good. It tastes good. It smells good. Everybody loves this chicken. And I can just tell that by this story, he is enraptured by the thought of this feast. And so I'm feeling a bond, and I take him by the hand, and I'm like, hey, man, the next time that you're in London, it would be so awesome for you to come over, because I'd make this meal for you. And he's like, Felicia, that's so nice of you, but I'm a vegetarian. Devastating. Turns out that people are different. Let that sink in. People are different. We have different experiences, different tastes, different perspectives. And it's often those differences that shape how we interact with others. Also, when it comes to the work environment, this is a place where we come into contact with communities and people that might have values that are different than our own, and they might actually shock us. Now, finding out that your coworker is a vegetarian while you love the sweet, sweet taste of bacon is probably pretty low on the conflict scale. But I can imagine that there might be some examples that are a bit higher. Maybe you grew up in a religious household. Maybe they're agnostic. Maybe for you, a loving relationship is between two people. Maybe for them, it's more. Maybe for you, you need a lot of data before you make a big decision. Maybe for them, they rely on their gut instinct. Maybe for you, you're totally fine getting into a conflict. Maybe for them, they're conflict averse. Regardless of where we stand on a number of issues, one thing is for certain. In order for us to survive, we need all of us, everyone together, to make sense of and to build the world around us. But in order to thrive, we need to be having critical, regular, healthy dialogues with each other, especially the people who challenge our point of view. In my own life, I have had times when someone has had a perspective that was very different from my own self-assured opinion. And there were moments when I lashed out or I recoiled. And in those moments, a lost friendship, a lost business opportunity, a lost life experience. That is why I invite all of you to find the recipe that allows you to embrace the difference in others. Now, when it comes to recipes, more often than not, the more diverse the ingredients, the better the flavor. Take turmeric, honey, ginger, thyme, lemon. All of these things have different flavors, and yet, when you combine them, they can make magic. In our personal and professional lives, the experiences in our lives actually create the recipe for who we are as people. And it's by bringing those ingredients to the table, and then allowing other people to bring their ingredients to the table, and mixing them up, and learning and growing with each other, that we can and do make magic. And so similarly, the more diverse the team, the better they are at making great product. It has been statistically proven time and time again that diverse teams, because they challenge each other's opinions and perspectives, they lower confirmation bias. And that means that they're able to make more innovative and more profitable products. Now, when it comes to my own recipe for bringing differences together and making that magic, it comes with two main ingredients. One is to practice my flexibility so that I can remain creative. And two is to build durable relationships by being curious and open. Now, as somebody who loves to cook, one of the things that I love to do is I love to have a good dinner party. And a standard request that I have for guests is to bring over bottles of wine. So, we got a lot of wine, we're enjoying ourselves, and every once in a while, the wine bottle opener goes missing. So, what do? Some of you might say, why don't you just go to the corner store and pick up a new one? But what if the store is closed? Or what if I would just prefer that nobody has to leave the party? Did you know that there are multiple ways that you can open a bottle of wine without a wine bottle opener? And without sabering it, because some of you were thinking that. Way number one. After removing the foil, you could take a 2-inch screw it halfway down into the cork, take the back end of a hammer, wedge it onto the screw, pull, and you've opened yourself a bottle of wine. Don't have that equipment? Not a problem. After removing the foil, take the end of a spoon, it has to be a smaller diameter than the cork, and you can actually push it down into the wine. Now let's say that the cork gets a little fiddly from all of this mess, and you need to filter out some of the sediment. No problem. Take some cheesecloth. Don't have cheesecloth? Use a tea strainer. What if you wanted to aerate the wine and filter out the sediment? Not a problem. If you have an empty tea kettle, all you have to do is pour the bottle of wine into the tea kettle and then pour the wine from the kettle into the glasses. Why am I saying all of this? I'm saying this to remind everybody here that there's no one way of doing anything, and yet we walk through our lives as if this isn't a fact. As human beings, we are creatures of habit, and oftentimes when we face a problem, the very first solution kind of sticks in our brains, at least until the next challenge. This is why it's so important that each of us practices our flexibility in order to be more creative, because it's only through creativity that we can be innovative. Now, I mentioned before that I work in augmented and virtual reality, and that's been mostly in head-mounted displays, i.e. glasses, that people can put on and they can experience amazing things. So imagine putting on a pair of glasses and you are instantly transported from your living room into one of your favorite vacation destinations. Or maybe you're still in your living room, but now you have helpful contextual information displayed, or you have beautiful objects or art in your space. Now, this technology is still pretty new, and it means that there's a lot of space for innovation. This also means that when you get a creative group of people who are developing for this thing together, there can be a lot of very loud, very opinionated ideas when it comes to what people want to do. Conversations can start to feel like a movie. They can kind of devolve into Mad Max Fury Road style conversations. One person's idea is going forward, but a second, third, fourth, fifth person's idea started to outflank the first person. They're hardly yielding the floor, they're debating hotly, their voices are rising with conviction. I have definitely been guilty of all of those things. But not everybody chooses the Mad Max Fury Road style of communication. Some people take the quieter, more laid-back version of communicating. But we shouldn't be judging people's ideas on whether they can yell it louder than the person next to them. One of my designers a few years ago came to me, and actually, she's on the quieter end of the spectrum, and she asked me for some advice. She said, "Hey, Felicia, I really want to find a way to be more engaged in some of these debates." My first reaction, my first advice, just jump in. If somebody cuts you off, you cut them right back off. If you get the ground, you never yield it. Just push, 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 push. That advice went down about as well as that time I told that vegetarian guy how great roasted chicken was. I couldn't see past my own communication style difference and look at what she needed. It was like I was making a soup, realized it was too spicy, and then tried to fix it by adding more spice. I needed to get creative, I needed to be flexible, and I needed to understand how I could get the best out of her and her communication style. So we did some brainstorming, and we thought about some things like maybe she should illustrate her ideas and present them before the meetings. Maybe those of us who are a bit on the louder end of the spectrum could be better advocates by soliciting the more quiet opinions in the room. All of these things, these small changes, they all built up to a happier, more innovative team because we were able to actually be more inclusive and bring everybody's best selves to the table. That's how you take a recipe for embracing what's different with others, from surviving to thriving. Now, another thing that's important to understand is that it's not just the food that you make that's important. It's also the utensils that you use. And great cooks know that when it comes to prep surfaces, that wooden cutting boards are infinitely better than plastic ones. Why? Because wood is infinitely more durable. First, wood has natural antibacterial properties. Also, a well-oiled board is more hard-wearing. And when it comes to your knives, soft wood is actually a lot better on your blades. Also, after a cutting board has taken some damage, you can take a little bit of sandpaper, sand off the top, and it's like new. Relationships also require durability. Damage happens, just like with a cutting board. Anger, arguments, flare-ups, they happen. And though it might seem counterintuitive, it's actually really critical that in those moments, when someone has an idea or an opinion that is different from your own, and it makes you feel angry or furious or whatever it is, that you stop and you ask questions and you remain open, because it is hugely helpful in getting past the initial hurt from those encounters. And this is especially true whether you have caused damage to others or somebody else has caused damage to you. I had another guy who was a part of my team, and he was pretty new to the space of AR and VR. And so he was actually presenting some of his ideas, and many of them felt a little bit familiar. And I said so. I said so in the meeting. I said, hey, listen, we're going to have to move past some of these ideas because I don't necessarily want us to have to continue to rehash some of the things that we haven't seen working. And I did that over the course of several different meetings until one day I saw his entire body language change. He became visibly upset and closed off and withdrawn. And I took one look at that and I thought to myself, I think I may have done some damage there. I'm going to have to follow up. And so I did. I took him aside and I said, hey, I don't think that that conversation went as well as you wanted it to. Can you tell me a little bit more about what you were thinking? And the minute I said that, his whole body language changed again. This time he looked visibly relieved and actually really happy that I was actually bringing this up. And he said to me, Felicia, listen, I understand, I get it that you and many of the other people in this, in the team, you've been working in this space for a long time, and that some of my ideas might be familiar. But I'm so excited about this, I would really like to have the opportunity to explore some of these things and not just have my ideas dismissed out hand. Now, if I had been given that critique in the past, my first response probably would have been, you're inexperienced. You'll just have to figure it out as we go along. But I understand that that is not how you make durable relationships. And so what I said instead was, thank you. Thank you for reminding me what it's like to be new and to also want to design in this space. Nobody comes out of the womb understanding how to create for AR and VR. We all have to learn. Now, it's important to me that you do understand some of the things that we've tried in the past, but I will be much more supportive in you making that journey on your own. And who knows, maybe you will find something working that we thought was broken, and we would have never known it if you hadn't have picked it back up. Now, these ingredients, creativity, curiosity, flexibility, durability, they're just some of the things that I've tried not only to figure out the difference in myself, but then also to embrace it in others. And it has not always ended in a win, and I can absolutely say it is not always smooth. But just like with cooking, it takes practice. It takes jumping in and trying something out to find out what works. And what's great is that once you do, you could take your own recipe and then you could share it with others. So, now that we've had some conversation about food and recipes and opening bottles of wine, I get the sense that maybe some of you might be a little bit hungry. Well, good news, now that I've gotten to know all of you and everybody listening, you are all invited to one of my classic roasted chicken dinners. But don't worry, if you happen to be vegetarian, I got you covered. I embrace your difference. Because, for the record, I'll make a mean cauliflower stew too. Thank you.